Hi there, thanks for joining me. So today we're here for the first race, the first proper organised race that I've been part of, the Zwift Racing League, WTRL, round 7, the Petit Boucle in France. And this is looking like it's going to be a big step up in quality from the usual bullying of crits around Crit City and the Champs-Élysées that I am used to. So, looking at the route today, we see here that starts off quite flat. There's a sprint approximately 11 kilometres out, then over the Aqueduct KOM reverse, and that is a 400 metres at 5%. And then a sort of flat bit into the next sprint, the balloon sprint reverse, then over some lumps and bumps, and then it's the large Petit KOM, which is 2.7 kilometres, 4% gradient, but it's got some flatter sections in there as well. Descend into a little flat over the Aqueduct KOM again, and then the final sprint of the day. Now, interestingly enough, when we looked at the Zwift Power route, there was actually a second sprint point that wasn't mentioned right at the start, just about less than a kilometre out, actually. And as it turns out, it wasn't actually a sprint at all, but if you do wonder why you see me going hard a little bit earlier than expected, that is why, because I wasn't sure if it was going to count for points or not, so I just decided to make sure I was going through first regardless. So here we are at the countdown. We've got 14 seconds to go. You'll see again around about 3 seconds I start to build the power up. There's the last drink, and as the countdown hits 3 out of the saddle, lay down some power, and that's about 550 watts at the start, and then ease off a little bit from there. And as we go, keeping it about 4.5 watts per kilo, just make sure we tack on to the back of this group, because this was the first race that I had done at this level. I wasn't really sure how it was going to break up, so I made sure to close everything that went off the front at the start to make sure that I was with the leading group. I just wanted to get everything covered and make sure that nobody got away, which is why you see me here. I've got 600 odd watts. I'm going to close that gap down. Teammates in the lead group, I'm going to hop across and pick up that and just make sure I get onto these guys as well. And then it's just going to hold a steady pace along the front, the waterfront, and through some shops and the shopping district. So we're riding here today with Zwift Scotland D1. It's a category D race, and here is the first sprint, the Marina Sprint Reverse. We see 736 watts there, 744, 746, and just make sure that we were going to take that as we relax and go over the start finish line. Quite annoying actually, that all I got as a reward for this was some XP. Not even the big XP boost, the small XP boost. It was terrible. It couldn't really have been any worse for me. Anyway, what we will do is skip forward a little bit as we get towards the next sprint section. So here we are, heading out towards the Pavé sprint, and as you'll notice, one of the racers there has just launched off the front around 5 watts a kilo, and knowing that we're less than a kilometre from the sprint on this side, we're going to have to shut that down. So we hit up around 5 watts a kilo, 540, 570 in terms of watts, and we just make sure that we shut this down. As it turns out, after the fact, everyone seemed convinced this was the first sprint point. Turns out, after the fact, this was not the first sprint point. So all this effort ultimately was for absolutely nothing. But as we get on the draft here, with just a couple of 100 metres to go, we pull out in front, sitting in the saddle, putting out, not unreasonable 4 watts a kilo, and you'll see the exact moment I go pop, and unfortunately one of the other riders goes past me to take the points. So that was a little disappointing, but it is what it is. I probably could have pushed out for a couple more pedal strokes and taken the first place over there, but I didn't, and I got second. Unfortunately, what also happened to me here was I completely blew up, absolutely and totally. That I had used, thinking that it was the sprint point, I decided to spend all of my pennies getting the points on the board for that one, and thinking, okay, that's fine, I'll just go back to the peloton and finish the race there. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It didn't count. So it was a futile effort. It's really, really frustrating. Anyway, as you can see, I've been dropped off the leading pack, and that's pretty much the end of that. So let's skip forward a little bit more here. So as we come up to the Aqueduct KOM, as we've joined with another couple of guys who had been dropped off of that lead group. The Aqueduct KOM, now obviously I'm 90 some kilos, 6'2". I don't climb. As soon as anything hits above 4%, I'm in a world of trouble. So I'm out the saddle here. I mean, it's a grindy out the saddle at sort of 50 odd revolutions per minute. But it's taken us up most of this climb. You can already see the gap that's opened up to the main field is, 20, 30, 40 seconds. It's in the 39th. It's in basically the middle of the pack. Works for me. So we go into the flower section. There is the banner for the end. And we're just going to tag onto the back of this gentleman here, and we'll just follow him through the gate. We're about 37 positions outside the point, so we're not too worried about it. All we're really looking for now is just a reasonable finish position, but knowing that there's the Petit KOM to go up, that's still a bit of a big ask, in my opinion. So there we go, followed him through, happy with that. Skip ahead a little bit here, and you'll see we're still kind of getting swallowed up by the remainder of the peloton. This was the next sprint, the balloon splint reverse. We just put a seated effort in, about 300 or so watts, to take that from the group that I was in, just to, show that I could. It was there. I made sure I was crossing first. Can't help it. Okay, now the next notable piece of action happens just after we've come out of the twisties, the ups and downs. Some people have called it the intestines, the colon, however it works, whatever works for you. So we come out here and we realise that the group that we're in is starting to break apart. So we're going to have to lay down a little bit of power to make sure that they don't get away and we don't fall behind. So you can see the gap has started to open up 4 meters, 5 meters, 6 meters, and we're like, no, can't let this happen. So stick down another little bump of energy and close that gap right back up. And that was about the only notable point. We just sat back on the wheels for this one, and we're going to try and stay with it as best we can over the hill. And so this brings us to our next point of action. We've started on the Petit KOM. You can see the gradients are around 4 or 5%. And at this point I think, well, I'll just stretch my legs and see how we do. Group is looking a little bit too big anyway. So 8%, we're out the saddle. 400 watts, 4.7 watts per kilo. We're in a big, big, big gear. And we're just going to grind out some of this, and you can already see gaps opening up to the rest of the peloton that we were with. So we keep on hammering away in the big gear. I can do climbs up to a degree. Probably anything less than 10% for maybe 300, 400 meters, I can manage. And then you see we just slap it down into one of the wee gears and just try and turn the legs over. And it's a kind of weird climb though, the Petit KOM, because it has steep sections like that, it's sort of 8%, and then it just flattens out again. It's really weird. So it's not as bad a climb as I expected it to be. Like, looking at the route profile, it looked like it was just a big wall. But when you actually zero in on it, you can see that, it's got these sections on it that are actually quite reasonable. So it's a weird one. It's a weird climb, but I was quite pleased with my performance over it. I managed to drop a chunk of the group. So that's quite nice. Not going to complain too much. So here's the first sighting of Ben Sly in the camera just behind me, camera shot there. I'll probably be seeing him for most of the rest of the video. Teammate from Zwift Scotland, D1. And he finishes one place in front of me. I try my best to lead him out, but because I'm not really accustomed to holding pace very well, in fact group rides in general, I don't really ride with the groups on the road. Every time he got up to my wheel on the aqueduct climb, I would drop the hammer again and just pop him off the back. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that jersey throughout this video. I see a couple of guys have now caught back up and started to go up the road. You can see from the mini-map in the top that this the Petit Boucle has just blown this group apart. There's people all over the road, absolutely all over the road. But there's another one of those little flat sections, and we'll skip ahead again and see what happens further up. we rejoin the action here with about 3 and a bit kilometres to go. And as you'll see on the right-hand side, I get the shout from the teammate. He's going to go at 2 kilometres. So that's about a K&a-half away. So I see that and think, okay, I am going to try and put down a shift at the front of the group to try and set him up as best I can. I've done everything I can at this point. I'm thinking I've got points off the first sprint. You know, my race is run, so I'll just try and lay down a pace and hope that it's enough to see our teammate get a good position. Try to do some good domestique duties, and we'll see how that works out for me. As the time's ticking away here into the last bit, you can take a look back at how I felt this race went. Overall, very happy with my performance. I did a lot better than I thought I would, especially going over the Petit Boucle. I really expected to be absolutely out the back of this. I expected to be somewhere around 60-something place. It wasn't to be. So I noticed at this point that Sly was sort of going off the front, and I thought, I'm not closing this gap. I'm going to just let him ride off into the sunset and get one of the other 2 here to close that gap for us. As they go past, I'll put down a little bit of power and let them do their thing. I'm not going to close down my own teammate. Here I notice that the Italian has put the hammer down as well, so I decide I'm going to close that one down. But I just, I'm sat back down in the saddle. I don't have the legs anymore. I really need someone else to come through and close that the rest of the way, because I don't have it. It's been a long hour for me, with way more climbing than I really enjoy. So I unfortunately have to let him go. And that's the last we see of our Italian friend. Here we go then onto the Aqueduct KOM. This is again, it's not a massive climb, but I'm looking around waiting for a teammate to take the wheel. And this is my problem with not really being good at gauging, consistent power and group riding in general. You'll see it when he does grab the wheel. I just blow him off every time, which isn't really very smart, but so I see he's there and think, okay, I'll just try and drag you up this hill as best I can. And you'll notice as soon as I put the power down again, I blow him back off the wheel. My intention was just to set him up and then let him ride off. And there he was, back on again and back off again and back on again. And I put the power down, and he's back on the wheel this time. So this is about 2 kilometres. Well, it's just inside 2Ks to go. I realise he's dropped the hammer. I'm not going to close down my own teammate, so I'm going to let him ride off, and then I'm just going to take the wheel of Millward behind and just let him do all the work. I'll just sit on. If he's got a burning desire to close down my teammate, then I'll let him do it. I'll just sit in the draft and chill out. Into the final, 1,200 metres now. A kilometre and a bit. Sly's not quite getting the advantage that I was hoping for. I was hoping that he would just opened up the gap and it would have just kept growing. Alas, that was not what happened. Here we are into the final kilometre. And I can see the gap coming down. Visually, it's coming down. I don't know if he maybe went a little bit early, maybe he didn't have quite the legs that he hoped that he would at this point, or maybe just realises that Millward is going to close him down and may as well just save it for a sprint. So we're all back together once again. And again, half a kilometre or so to go, this is coming down to a sprint. So I'm quite happy to let Millward go off on his own. I'll sit behind him, sit in the draft, and be quite happy. So round we go into the final section. The sprint zone starts here as we go into the tunnel. And at this point I'm just going to do as best a sprint as I can, and if I can drag my teammate with me, the more the merrier. So 650 watts. It's not a great sprint. Just touch on 730 there. But I mean, I'm blown by this point. I'm back in the saddle. That's how not good a sprint it is. But over the line we go with a teammate next to me. So that's 207 overall for all categories, and it's not. It's not a bad result. Relatively happy with it. For our category D, it was a 37th place, 36th for Ben Sly. So like I say, quite happy. Enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the organised race side of things. I hope to do it again. Next week's a team time trial. I'm working, so I won't be involved in that one, but hope to be involved in any future races going forwards. It was quite enjoyable. It was really good. So I hope to see you all again sometime, and thank you for following. You can subscribe, share, do what you got to do. See you after.